is this place? What is it that you do here? Merchandising. Merchandising, merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made.
Oh, it's beautiful.
What's up, everybody? My name is Tabitha, and we are welcoming you to the booth. Come on inside the booth. We don't just sell merchandise here, but we do like to show it off. So all the information is in the description box down below. Just want to go ahead and get that out of the way because I am super, super excited for tonight's episode because it's out of the box. We're inside the booth, but we're out of the box this evening. And you might be wondering to yourself, Tabitha's all by herself. Where's Dan? And I'm so glad you asked. I regret to inform you that Dan is taking a much needed break, okay? Dan is a hardworking, faithful, dedicated co-host of this show. And I told Dan, you need to take a break. So he took a break. I mean, it was mutual. It didn't just boss him around. But you know what? Holidays are coming up. Everybody needs to take a break. Of course, I'm sure he'll be lurking in the chat. But just to let you know, Dan's still out there. He's thinking about you. Of course he is, because he's that awesome kind of guy. But for this evening, it's going to be me hosting. And I have a wonderful panel of guests this evening. Some brand new faces here on the, on the show, in the booth. You know, all of those articles and things like that. But before we get too far ahead, because we are, if you've seen the description, or excuse me, the title of today's episode, we are doing books versus movies and movies versus books. Has Hollywood gotten anything right when it comes to adaptations? We're going to find out tonight. And like I said, all of the information is in the description box down below. So as I introduce our wonderful panels, please be sure to check out their channels as well when you get the time. And of course, be sure to vanquish the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Ring the notification bell. Can't get my letters out tonight. I need to read more books. Books always better. But yeah. Let's just go ahead and get started so I don't mess up any more of my words. Again, thank you so much for being here. Let's introduce our first guest tonight, the wonderful, the awesome, a troubled green.
Hello.
Welcome. Also formerly known as Aleja. So thank you for being here. You've got a lot of exciting things going on in your life. And you're a busy, busy gal, but you've got your own YouTube channel. What exactly is it that you do here on the internet?
Well, oh gosh, I'm still trying to figure that out a little bit, but I think I'm going to start leaning pretty heavily into book reviews on my channel. So I won't be making any content and probably until March, after me and my fiance tie the knot. So we're getting moved and everything. So yes. So book reviews are where I feel, drawn to talk about and stuff. I'm a little bit tired of the pop culture stuff, so I want to give people good books to read.
Absolutely, I hear you on that. Pop culture is wonderful, but books are better.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard you say before that you really haven't watched a lot of books. You're primarily, watched a lot of books. You haven't watched a lot of movies. You're primarily a bookworm, basically, right?
I am. Yes. Like I think
awesome.
I drive people insane. I feel lucky I know who John Wayne is, but like movies just aren't my thing. It's a very intermittent thing that I go and see a movie, when it comes out. It's usually a big blockbuster that I go see. So yeah, books are really my forte. So that's where I stay.
Yeah. Understandable, because you are also a historian. Is that correct?
I am.
Right?
Yeah,
right,
I am. I'm an Irish historian. So I do watch a lot of Irish films, a lot about the troubles of Northern Ireland. So yeah, Ireland is my forte, but fantasy is my escape.
Nice. I like that. Forte, escape.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here on the show, even though you are super busy with life and happiness and all that stuff. So, but we're going to go ahead and welcome our next edition here, the one and only. I'm going to start calling him Brother RevKev. Like, I feel like that would be your rapper name. If that
There we go. There
Brother
you go.
RevKev.
Never had an official rapper name, so that might
brother,
be
like not brother, brother.
There you go.
Brother RevKev.
Nice.
Welcome to the channel. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, so I kind of go by the handle RevKev only because that's the nickname that our youth pastor at our church gave me like 12 years ago, and it just kind of stuck. So that's everyone just calls me that, and that's just how I go by
I think it's
things on the
brilliant.
internet.
I love it. I really
Yeah.
didn't piece it together until I started seeing your tweets on Twitter where you were pastoring.
Well,
Like,
people find out that
oh,
you're actually an ordained reverend. It's like,
yeah.
what? But
Like,
like,
that just-
you're fun, you know. I guess they don't expect us to be fun. So
like, of course, right. So misleading, but
exactly.
yeah. What it is?
Have fun.
What it is? What do you do on your YouTube channel?
So I kind of have two different channels right now. So the main one is RevKev's, just search just the RevKev. It's kind of my geek corner. It really is, YouTube for me is just for kicks and giggles. Like I just do it for the fun and the hobby of it. And I just talk about what I'm into. And what's been amazing about it is to meet a whole bunch of other people that are into what I'm into. So I've really been kind of focusing lately more on older pop culture stuff as an older guy, right? Like I'm in my 50s, and the stuff that's coming out now, I don't want to be a hater, but I don't like any of it.
Yeah.
So
Shots fired. Boom,
I
boom,
know.
boom, boom.
So I've just kind of gone back, kind of regressed a little bit to my adolescent years, and I've gone back to video games and books and comics and things like that from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I've been having lots of fun with that. And then my second channel, I just call that one the Rev It Up with RevKev, and that one's more about my fitness journey. So I became a certified fitness instructor last year, just for kicks and giggles again, to push myself and challenge myself when it was part of my midlife crisis. So I did that, and so I kind of use that channel to explore the importance of being well, body, mind, and spirit, and how we do that. So
It's got to be the best midlife crisis ever.
it was
Get
fun. Hey,
better. Get healthier.
you know, I lost 55 pounds in my midlife crisis, so that's got to be a good thing.
I mean,
So.
you didn't go out and get like your navel pierced or something?
No, I didn't buy a
Like-
motorcycle because I'm a
Right.
pastor who lives off the charity of others, so I couldn't get a motorcycle. And,
That is awesome. Yes, I first discovered you on Twitter. You were being shouted out by Drunk 3PO, and I was like, look
That's
at
right.
you. You had just gotten 1,000 subscribers on your channel.
Correct. Yeah.
And you were celebrating. So I popped on over there, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, I dig this guy's vibe. Anytime I talk about RevKev, I'm like, this guy's got great energy. He's got
Oh, I
good
appreciate that.
vibes, and just a
Appreciate that.
happy.
Yeah, and I think you won a copy of my wife's book. I think I sent down. To you
I
at one
did.
point,
I
right?
was supposed to also bring out, if I can reach it. 1 second here.
Yeah.
One of my prized possessions. I entered one of your contests.
That's
and
right.
yes,
Oh, yeah. Yes.
it's on my list to read your wife's book. Got so many books to read. And then I got this brilliant patch that you sent me. I actually
Yes.
have 2 of them. And RevKev, not to be disrespectful to all of this, right? But the
Yeah.
smaller patch that you give me is the perfect size for the chibis that I make.
I know when
when
I
I
see
draw.
your videos and you're like, hey, that's my patch. You know,
Right.
It's
Like,
find
I
that
don't
really
have the
cool.
heart to actually attach this to any article of
Yeah.
clothing, but it
Mhm.
makes the perfect stencil for my drawings. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. So I
Yeah, because you
featured them.
can't get those unless you're an official member of the 501st Legion.
That's
So
why they're dear
those
to
are-
my heart.
They're hard to get. They're hard to come by.
And that's why I was like, I got them. Like, I never win anything. I'm like, I got them. So, well, we have a spectacular panel. Thank you guys for being here in the chat as well. As we go along, we totally want to encourage you to share some of your opinions, share some of your favorite adaptations along with us. We do request that while you be passionate in your opinions, you also be polite, because we all know we have different preferences, and just because you like one thing doesn't mean the whole world does, right? Even if they should. Okay, I'm just saying, even if they should. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Of course, if you guys are watching and you enjoy, please feel free to share, hit that like button. We are nearing 800 subscribers. Thank you guys for being here. We're doing all this for you. So let's get to the entertainment part. We are going to be doing the first step here is going to be the top 3 worst book to films. All right. Hope everybody's got their stuff ready, because we're a bunch of book nerds around here. And so I'm going to go ahead and go first. We're going to go around the table for those that are new here at Inside the Booth. And we're doing a little bit differently here tonight. Typically, we do movie reviews every Tuesday and Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But today, because Dan's not here, I decided to mix things up. So we'll go ahead and do that. So my first on my top worst book to films. And I would also include TV shows. I think pretty much anytime I said like films, it's like it's going to be on the screen. It's going to be TV, right? I have to say that it's such a pet peeve of mine, honestly, because all right, here it comes. You guys ready for this? It's going to be the Wheel of Time series produced by Amazon. Oh my gosh. I was on somebody's channel last year, Legion Talk, and we went through, he has never read the books. I listened to the books, right? I've read some of the books, but I primarily listened to the audiobooks. And this series mutilated these characters, right? Oh, it was so gut-wrenching. I already knew that we were going to be in trouble when I started seeing, and you guys have to understand, don't take it the wrong way, but when even before this show came out, they were starting to promote diversity, which we know diversity is important. All right. We all understand that. We don't hate that other people of the world are involved in our movies. Heck, bring it on. But they were just right away making huge changes simply for inclusivity and the wokeness. For me, that's when I really started to know the wokeness began, right? And a lot of things didn't start making sense. And I'm like, they're making big changes to a lot of these characters. It can only go downhill from here. But I did decide to watch the first episode because I was like, I'm going to give it a chance. Because sometimes just because it doesn't go according to your plan or what you envision the book to be on film doesn't make it terrible, right? Man, they desecrated the characters. Well, the character of the characters. I mean, it was just awful. I don't know if you guys are fans of the Wheel of Time, if you've seen or read the books or anything. It's an amazing fantasy story. I can't remember, was it like 12, 15 novels, right? It's a huge series.
Yeah.
And it's amazing adventure. I've been listening to them for over a decade now, very familiar with a lot of the stories. And I'm just like, the first episode, it's too fast. They changed personalities in the storyline. They started man-hating, like it was all men's fault. It's like, that's not how that works. And like women were saving the day and all this nonsense that was going on. And then they had the characters sleeping with one another, even though they weren't supposed to. Like, these were supposed to be farmers and things like that. Old school, old world mentality, right? And like, save yourself for marriage. Be careful. Your reputation is very important. Who you associate with, also very suspicious people. And they're just going to go around and be like, I don't know if I'm really meant to be with him, but I'm going to sleep with him anyway. And I was just like, that is not who these people are. And then they just started changing even the background and the storyline of people. And I could get really deep here, but I'm just going to, that's my worst. Like, that's my top. I can't stand it. I hate it so much. I was really disappointed what they did, but I wasn't surprised. So, Aleja, take over. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go on a rant.
Girl, I hear you. I fully understand. So, my top worst one is actually the movie Aragon that came out in the early 2000s. I think it was 2006, and there's a meme I've seen, and it was like, fandoms talking about the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lord of the Rings, and Aragon. And like, you know, so Lord of the Rings is like the pinnacle of like what a lot of people think is the perfect adaptation. Chronicles of Narnia, the first one was okay, and then it kind of slowly went downhill. And then the entire Aragorn fandom agrees that movie doesn't even exist. Like, we don't even acknowledge it. It's so bad.
What movie?
Yeah.
Like, what movie? What are you talking about?
It was bad.
It was so bad. They had the dragon grow up in a scene. She got struck by lightning, and she went from a hatchling to a full-grown dragon. There was no time to grow up. Like, the main elf maiden was a redhead, not this fair black haired maiden, and she was in a corset, like a sleeveless. I don't know. It was just like even the smallest details were so bad. Everything about the production was so despicable. It was just it was a desecration. And I saw it one time when I was like, I think probably 17, and I literally blocked it from my memory. I can barely remember it, but it was one of the poorest acted movies I think I've ever seen.
I mean, it was bad.
Oh, it was so bad. And what's bad and what's sad is I thought, now I'm blanking on his name, Jeremy Irons. I thought he was a really good Brom. Like I thought actually of all the whole cast, I thought Jeremy Irons was the best one. But the rest of that movie, it was a joke. It was so bad. So
it really was. Yeah,
like, and I haven't seen it since, so I barely remember it. I just remember being horrified that we were coming off of Lord of the Rings, and those were such beautiful movies, and then we got that because they were trying to follow up on what Peter Jackson had done. They were trying to make the Urgles look like the orcs, and it just didn't work. It was just such a bad. It was a bad. So and excuse me. I don't have much hope for Disney now having the rights, and now they're on the road to remake it. So
That's right. I heard whispers in the wind about that.
They are, and Christopher Paolini did confirm it on his Instagram. So he is on production. Still doesn't give me much hope, but yeah. So I don't know. I feel like Aragorn's kind of cursed, but Aragorn movie of the early 2000s.
Gosh, it's been a hot minute since I've seen that movie, but I do remember watching it and being bitterly disappointed, being like, what was that? Like, what was that? Like, that was just awful. And that was before I really got into understanding how badly movies could be made. Yes. Once you've read or listened to the book, I tend to listen to a lot of audiobooks. I have quite the collection of tangible books, but when I'm driving and stuff, and it's like I've listened and read Aragon, and it's like this was like basically trying to take a synopsis of the book and make it into a movie when you have all the rest of the storyline to work with. And it's like, what? Yeah. Why? It's funny that you say that too, because I think I was telling them backstage, guys, that I totally forgot what my third worst book to film was. And I know Aragon was on the list somewhere. It may have been an honorable mention, or it may have been my third one. I can't find it. So I'm glad that you spoke up and already said it, Aleja, because it had to be mentioned. It had to be mentioned. So brother RevKev, what's your top?
I don't know if a lot of people agree with me on this one, but I really, really, really was disappointed with Ready Player One.
Oh.
So directed by Steven Spielberg, right? Made a ton of money.
Yeah.
And so everyone's just like, oh, and beautiful special effects and all that. But again, I don't know if it's the nostalgia of, I was a child of the 80s. I was born in the 70s, teenager in the 80s. So all of this stuff, it was like, I was into all of this stuff that's referenced in the movie. But the book, I had actually read the book first, because I like science fiction. Right? The book is amazing, and same kind of thing. So the movie is fine, but then when you contrast it to the book, kind of the book is just, it's so far and above better that for someone who loves the book and you just watch the movie, it's like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Changing the characters, changing kind of the main heroes, changing the ending, changing
the ending. That's blasphemy.
I know. And even think, and they had to kind of change things as well because there were so many references to pop culture, like 70s and 80s pop culture in the book. Well, they didn't get the rights to all of it to put it into the movie. So then they had to replace it with different things. Right, so you couldn't have
that
this
sounds
character.
Familiar.
Right, exactly. You couldn't put this character in, so they had to kind of put something else, and just wasn't as cool. And it's like, oh no, so much better with this, and different things like that. So just kind of sitting there, it was such a big spectacle movie, like I said, directed by Steven Spielberg and all this, and you're just kind of like, it just fell very flat for what it was. So
that's interesting.
And as soon as I was finished watching it, I had to go back and just reread the book. Like
kind of cleanse the palate.
Exactly. I just had to kind of like, we went to go see it as a family at the movie theater, and my kids were like, "That was amazing." I'm like,
Yeah, I think we're all going to notice a trend here between it's just like, again, the book was better. And if you've read the book before you've watched the movie, people have disagreed with me on this. I say that I would rather watch the movie first and then read the book. And people are like, oh, no, do it the other way around. I'm like, no. See, what happens is when you read the when you watch the movie, you can enjoy it as is, right? Because you're ignorant. Then when you go and read the book, it's almost like an expansion pack. It's like some extra DLC, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't then know, because I did it when I read Twilight. All right. Yeah, I read the Twilight series. Yes, I enjoyed it. No, I wasn't into the romance. I just thought it was an interesting story. Okay. Don't hate me. Don't come at me. You guys know. But I did go see all the movies in the movie theater, like on opening night. Yes, I was one of those people. I wasn't
Nothing wrong with that.
Right. I was one of those people. I will say I wasn't like all hot and heavy for the dudes. I thought it was a fun storyline. But anyway, I watched like the first couple of movies, like the first two movies, right? And then I went and read the books and I'm like, oh, so this is actually what happened. And then I made the mistake of going ahead and reading the third book and then watching it in the theater. And it ruined my movie experience because I already knew what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie just went by so quickly. And I'm like, well, I already knew what was going to happen. So that's why I tell people, like, it'd be better just to watch the movie first and then to read the book, because it's like expanding on that. I have watched Ready Player One and I enjoyed it. I've never read it though. So, see, that's good. Yeah. It's rough.
And we expect, if you've read the book first, you expect the movie to be different. Like, you know that.
Yes.
Like, you just know it going into. Like, they have to. Not everything translates well from book to film. But
there's some things where you're just like,
you could have made that one work, or that change was not necessary. Things like that.
Right. Or like an unnecessary gender swap or something like that. And you're like, really? It could have been a dude. Why did it have to be a girl? Like, why?
Right. Exactly.
So I will go ahead and move on to one movie that, and I am being a little loose and free when I say the worst, movies ever made, clickbait and all that stuff. But it's the internet. But some of them are really the worst, or at least to us. But one movie that, of course, as we all know, based off of a book, I just loved the book so much. And the movie, I couldn't believe, even though it had one of my favorite actors in it, I couldn't believe how awful this movie turned out. And that would be Inkheart. Oh my gosh. Inkheart with Brendan Fraser and Helen Mirren and stuff. Have you guys ever seen Inkheart or read it?
I have, but I've never read it. But see, I liked it, but I've never read the book.
And it was so boring and awful compared to the book. And I was and honestly, okay, I love Brendan Fraser. Like, I think he was an underappreciated actor, honestly, and I think he still is. Like, I just have a soft spot for Brendan Fraser. I think he's absolutely fantastic. But I just don't think he was a good choice for Mo, firstly. I thought that was honestly a terrible choice. And then again, like you say, just some of the changes. I mean, again, you had good actors. You had Brendan Fraser, you had Andy Serkis, you had Helen Mirren. But just because you have fantastic actors doesn't make the movie good, right?
Yeah.
It was just different. And it's been a while since I've watched that's right, Dan. Brendan Fraser, very handsome man for sure. But it's been a while since I have watched the film, but I do remember a lot of changes being made. I don't recall specifically, but I just remember leaving with such a horrible taste in my mouth after watching this movie, having read and listened to the book. And I'm like, no, it's one of my favorite books to listen to or to read. And I'm like, why'd you gotta do it, Hollywood? Why?
Yeah.
And the thing is that there's like 2 more books after this. And this is also something that I hate when they make a movie based off of a series and just make the one movie.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That's the worst.
That's the point. Especially if it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't get the rest. I mean, yeah, we could just, read the book, but it's like, but the whole point of is to continue to watch. Joker voice here says, so I'm assuming Brendan Fraser is one of your favorite actors. I suggest you never watch Doom Patrol then. I would say I do really like him as an actor. There's just some quality about him where he's kind of this healthy mix of funny, serious, he's a manly man without being some macho dude, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
Right. And if you guys want a hot take, watch our girls' night episode from a couple of months ago where I and a couple of ladies discussed cringy macho manly films. And if you're interested in seeing some shots fired in the chat, and again, I'm going to say we weren't against men. We love masculinity here on Inside the Booth. It was just, these were some movies where the dudes were just like, ugh. Yeah. So that would be my second one. It would be Inkheart. What about you, Aleja?
So my second one, it's not something that has come out. It's currently slated to be produced, and I'm very worried about it, just given the studio's track record. It's Netflix has the rights to Brian Jacques' entire Redwall series.
They do?
Oh. Yes, they do. I don't know why his son sold. I'm very annoyed about this. They're starting with Lord Brocktree, which is in the chronological order of the 21 books that is the Redwall series. That's the first one. And so I don't know. I'm just, how it's like in my mind, it's like, how can they take a bunch of talking animals and make them woke? And I'm like, they'll find a way.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, but really, what could they do? And you're right.
They'll find a way.
They can always find a way.
Yeah. So and right now it's very hush hush. There's not a whole lot that's being said about it. So I
had no clue.
Yeah. No. I just because they bought the rights, I believe, in 2020. I hadn't heard anything, and then I was on Audible because I do audiobooks as well. I have an extensive audiobook collection. There was a big sale on Audible, and I was just looking at stuff, and it came up in my recommended. A new recording of Lord Brocktree. So that is available on Audible, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for Lord Brocktree to become available. I was so excited. And then I was reading through the description. It was like slated to be
Don't make her laugh, Johnny.
I know. He's actually sitting right next to me on the couch. So he's glaring at him like, don't make me laugh. I'll start coughing. But I just saw in the description slated to be the next Netflix production. So I am worried. I really hope that it's okay because, PBS did that wonderful little mini series based off of Martin the Warrior, Redwall, and Max Mayo, and I just loved those. I grew up on those sweet little cartoons. They were so wonderful. That's what introduced me to Brian Jacques. So Brian Jacques, he's like the national treasure of England. He was so beloved. I mean, even the Prime Minister loved him, and he actually went to 10 Downing Street and met his children. So yeah, I don't know. I again, I don't want to hate on everything, but Netflix doesn't have a good track record.
We've lost faith in the production companies. It's really sad to see, because I think having a Redwall series, big fan of the books myself. I love like Rackety Tam, Tagarong, Lone Edge is probably one of my favorite ones. I would think it'd be awesome. And the thing is, like we all say, like they've got, like, did you say was 16 books? Is that what they said?
This thing is 21.
21, yeah. He made so many. It's like you have enough to work with. And I know getting the rights is important and difficult sometimes to acquire. And I got to be like one of those people, if you're going to produce something like this and you don't get the rights to it, I don't know. I'm the type of person that I just wouldn't want to do it. Like if I can't make it like the stories, and of course, like RevKev said, it's not going to be exact. But if I can't have the characters, like, all right, I'm going to call the elephant in the room. If it's going to be like Rings of Power, where you only get to cherry pick, certain people because you didn't get the rights to other people that are essential to the story, then what the freak is the point?
Yes.
What is the
point? Yeah, and just Brian Jacques has so many wholesome, good, traditional themes throughout his stories. It's just, it's like I don't want Cornflower to turn into the sword wielding
women's rights activists.
I want her to be the nurturing mother who stays in Redwall and takes care of people. I don't want them swapping people. I don't want that. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. In my perfect scenario, it just gets stuck in production hell and stays there. That's, to me now, that's like the best thing that can happen, is just that
they ran out of money.
Never gets off the ground.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love those stories. That's a good choice. What about you? What's your next one, RevKev?
My next one's gotta be Interview with the Vampire.
Ooh.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
Okay.
So that movie, I think it came out early 90s, 1994, somewhere around there. I've always loved, especially like as a teenager, I love vampire stories.
You love Twilight. Thank you for confessing that, RevKev.
I like the movie. I will admit it. And I read the book, and I'm like, this book was written for 14-year-old girls, and I put the book away. So no offense to anyone who liked the book, but I actually really liked the movie.
That's great.
Awesome.
And I was Team Charlie all the way.
Yes.
The father. I was like, the father, get that guy away from your daughter. Like, just like, come on.
Right.
But anyway, Interview with the Vampire, like, I love the world that Anne Rice, the author, created, like in her book series, like starting with, Interview with the Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned. Like, there was like it was just so deep and so rich. And Interview, it just felt so flat. Like, it was like Tom Cruise just so wanted to do this. I think he was in a stage in his career, like he had to break out to just not be Top Gun forever.
Yes.
Right? Not like he was doing movie like Top Gun, and what was the race car driving one that he did? Like, they were all the same. It was it was the same. So I get that he wanted to do something so different, but he was so bad in it. It was just so
I
bad.
never would have picked him for a vampire movie for sure.
No. And you just like Brad Pitt, I didn't know who Brad Pitt was. Like, he was still fairly new, so like he did great, but just Tom Cruise just took the whole thing out. Like, it just made it not work.
That's great.
They just expected him to put his shades on or get across the floor in his underwear as a vampire. So it just kind of, and just a lot of the, one of the things that I loved about why a vampire would turn someone else into a vampire is because they're immortal and they needed someone to help them adapt to the new age, right? Because as time would change, right? Like, again, we don't like change, right? We love our little bubbles. We like our circles. And so vampires are the same. And then as the world changes around them and they don't even age, they'd go into a sleep because they just couldn't cope. So they would turn someone else to help them advance to blossom into the next age. So it was so cool. And they tried to do that in the movie, and it just fell flat. Like, it just didn't come across very well. It just didn't work.
Interesting.
So
That's fascinating, though.
It was something new about vampires that I hadn't really seen in anything else.
Yeah.
Right? Like, little Dracula, like, Count Dracula forever. Who cares? Or,
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, vampire, post-traumatic stress syndrome or something. Like, they just couldn't.
You just don't think of vampires having that.
Yeah, so they needed someone else to. So I love that in the book series. So
wow, I didn't know that was a book. So
yeah, it was. And now there's a new show that just came out on Amazon Prime. I think based on the book again. So Interview with the Vampire is now a series. I don't even have Amazon Prime anymore. Like, I just turned that off. I was like, I don't watch anything on this. Everything's terrible on it. So I saved myself $9 a month now.
Yourself.
So.
Run away.
So yeah.
Oh, wow.
But that was a big one. That big just disappointment for me, because I think in any of these books that do such a great job in world building, like world building is so hard to do well in a movie.
Yeah.
Like, it just really is, because you have to get it done in an hour and a half to 2 hours.
See, but you
And
don't have to. You can take the Peter Jackson route and make a 3-hour movie.
You
Like,
can.
why
I
not?
agree. I have no problem with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here.
I love me a good 3-hour long movie. Peter Jackson doesn't know how to make a short movie.
No,
I really can't. Even made King Kong a 3-hour movie.
I was gonna say King Kong was 3 hours long, and it was a good movie. That freaky scene though, with the bugs, I couldn't.
With the bugs, I know that scene with the bug and it comes out and gets that guy in the head.
I can't watch that kind of stuff. I can't. I had to turn away. I had nightmares. I felt like I'd lost a sense of innocence or something. Even my brother had to look away, and he was like, "Dude, that was." It's kind of heavy. It was kind of heavy. Hey, Miss Martin Muses, another book nerd over there, bookworm, one of our people. Glad that you're here. Johnny64 says, for me, nothing has ever hurt me as bad as the Halo show. I waited 2 decades for a big budget Halo, and it was beyond insulting. So I have heard. I enjoyed the games myself. Haven't read any of the books, but from what I heard, they did it dirty, and it's really really
the books. I like them. I like the books. If you're into Halo, I'm doing it backwards. I'm reading the books, and then he's going to get me into the movie or the games. But yeah,
but that would be cool. That'd be kind of a cool immersive experience because you're going to know the reason why everything is there.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you even play the game, and so that's man. I haven't played Halo in years. I should totally do that. And do that with like Mass Effect as well. So guys, I had mentioned a little while ago, excuse me, that I cannot remember. I wrote it down somewhere and I lost it. My notes about what my third worst choice would be. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pass it on over to Aleja. Okay. What is your third?
So actually, our discussion kind of jogged my memory about one. So I'm shifting here quickly in the middle of the stream. But my third one actually is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Okay.
I just thought that was such, the first Chronicles of Narnia movie was visually nice to look at. It was okay. I did not like Tilda Swinton's, whatever her name is, as the White Witch. I always saw the White Witch as like an evil version of Arwen, like just so.
She's supposed to be beautiful.
Beautiful, just so beautiful. I'm sorry, Tilda Swinton, beautiful she is not.
She's not.
She's a striking woman, but she's not beautiful.
Fantastic actress, but
just
nowhere. Yeah, like
no. Dreadlocks, no.
Dreadlocks, I know.
Ugh. So,
Frozen dreadlocks.
But The Voyage of the Dawn Treader to me was one book that really I feel like encapsulated Lewis's theology that he was trying to convey in the entire series, apart from the last battle, and they just ripped it to shreds. I mean, it was insulting how bad and how far off that movie was from the books, and I just feel like and I guess apparently Netflix also has the rights to Chronicles of Narnia, so that's also very I'm very concerned. So
you notice this pattern, like all the ancient, old beloved franchises they're coming for.
They really are, and
trying to make money off of anything they can.
Oh yes. So I don't know. The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, that was just it was so far from the book that it's like it was the book in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader in name only. It wasn't even close to the book. So yeah, I was very disappointed and it was a sad that they just dropped the series on that note because they could have done all 7 books, but they didn't. So
yeah, I like you said, they're visually they were stunning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just beautiful colors, vibrancy, fun. They were just fun and everything like that. And I see again. I hate it. Like they already went 3 books in, and they're like, "We're done."
Yeah, we're out.
We're out.
And I'm like, if you were just faithful to the source material, we would have kept watching your movies. But the fact of the matter is, you weren't. So I'm not going to pay to see this.
And I mean, I know it takes money to make these movies, and if it doesn't do well at the box office, that's a big part of it. But it's just like commitment. Just do it.
Exactly.
So your third and final worst book to movie, RevKev, what would that be?
I didn't like The Hobbit.
Yeah.
The Hobbit movies,
like the
3
thing?
Hobbit movies, the Hobbit trilogy.
Yeah.
See, I can't put that in my worst. I was mad at it, but I can't put it in my worst because overall I enjoyed it. So
it wasn't even so much that I was mad at it, or it was just, like I was just kind of it felt like a cash grab.
It did.
Like to drag it out into 3 movies. It was like, it's one book, and it's it's not a hard book. It's not a complicated book. Like it would have made one great movie.
Yeah.
Easy. It might have been 3 hours long, but it could have easily been done in one great movie.
Yeah.
But because of the success of The Lord of the Rings, I think they've kind of painted, like, it just felt like a studio cash grab for me. So, and I guess just my spider sense goes up really fast when it's blatantly a cash grab.
Yeah.
Like certain sequels that you didn't need this sequel. This sequel, Sister Act 2. You didn't need Sister Act 2.
We didn't need Geniality 2. Yeah.
Exactly. The first one was fun. It was light. It's just a great comedy. Then it's cash grab, right? So The Hobbit for me just felt like the cash grab of The Lord of the Rings. Because I think with the success of The Lord of the Rings, everyone, and Harry Potter movies for that matter, with the success of those 2 franchises, everyone was trying to find the next franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was so much money to make in it. And so I think The Hobbit suffered from that.
I could see that. Yeah.
It was supposed to be 2 movies, and then they halfway through production announced that they're going to make it 3 movies, and they just brought in all this stuff that wasn't in the book.
Love triangles.
It's like, now, I like Legolas. I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
Orlando Bloom was great, the character, but it was kind of like, what is all this stuff?
Like, dude, why are you here? Like,
exactly.
The only thing
because it needed a tie-in to The Lord of the Rings. It had to feel more like a prequel type of thing. So.
Even though we had Frodo in the beginning,
Exactly.
The only thing I liked about the Hobbit trilogy was the White Council scenes. I thought those were done really well. But apart from those, like 10 minutes, I'm like, nah. But but I think Johnny's right. I think it's aging better now than given what happened with the Rings of Power. Then
So that's good point. Yeah. So.
We've got bots in the chat. Hey, it's been a while. Thanks for stopping by. Bye. I love the scene though with Thranduil. I think Lee Pace was a perfect choice. He did a magnificent job. May or may not have had a crush on him for a little while, but he did a good job. I will say that even though I don't like the love triangle and all that kind of stuff, Peter Jackson and his crew, they do a good job with the selection of the actors.
Yes.
For them. Like Taria, like Evangeline Lilly did a good job.
Oh, she was great.
She wasn't needed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Just
right.
Need it.
So I mean I think that's the thing that gives me an okay, if you will, for the Hobbit movies, is the fact that at least it was done well, even though there shouldn't have been things in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. At least it's done well. So those are our top 3 worst book to film adaptations. And we want to just say thank you, everybody, for sticking around and hanging out with us this long. We are going to switch over now to we're going to switch it up to 2 of the best book to films. And again, I just want to thank everybody for watching. Be sure to hit that like button, vanquish it, subscribe to the channel. And if you're looking for ways to support us here on Inside the Booth, if you like what you see here, you can look in the description box down below. We've got merch stores and TeePublic. You can get you some really awesome hoodies in this nice chilly season that's coming upon us in certain parts of the world. Where I live, it's not. I'm pretty sure where Aleja lives, it's not. It might be where our neighbor to the north lives, though.
It was actually 74 today up here in Canada, so it's like booming hot, which is not normal.
Yesterday here, so it's actually getting really cold here.
Yeah.
What? I don't understand. The world is just shifting upside down. But you can also check out my guests' links down below to their YouTube channels. And of course, if you want to support us here on Inside the Booth, you can check out our Patreon page where you can support us for as little as $1 a month. And we appreciate every single one of you who cares enough to support the booth. So moving on to, like I said, the top 2 best book to film. I'll go ahead and go first. Speaking of The Hobbit, I've got to put Lord of the Rings up there.
Yes.
While we all acknowledge that there were some creative liberties taken in the movie. Certain things like everybody always pulls out Helm's Deep, right? The elves came to save the day. All right, I get it. Wasn't in the book, but man, made for a freaking awesome like bonding moment between men and elves again. And just was again. Peter Jackson has this magic. It shouldn't have been in the movie, but dang it, they did a good job. And just so well with the choice of actors, the writing, and how they were just believable. Like they had a gift for making this book come to life. And so when I go back and read Lord of the Rings, it is not difficult to reimagine this world in that way because it just works. It's seamless. It fits. Like the thought process that went into this. I mean, Lord of the Rings been out for 20 years, was it 20 plus years now? And we're still talking about it, right?
Still watching it.
We are still watching it. We are still talking about it. We are still comparing other things to it. Yeah, I've got to say that on my top list, it's got to be. And like most people, I can't say The Fellowship. I can't say it's The Towers. I can't say it's no. It is for me. It is basically just one movie.
Yes,
like Lord of the Rings. It's got to be Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. That's nice. Thank you, Jesus, for Peter Jackson. So, all right, your turn, Aleja. I'm curious to hear what this says.
So this one's a little bit weird because there's a little bit like finagling that went into this movie, but my first pick is actually going to be Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. I adore that movie so much.
I didn't know that was a book.
Yes. So they're actually 21 books. There's a huge library of books that this, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he is considered to be the best naval historian, fictional naval historian of all time. Like naval historians of like the Napoleonic era agree that he is like one of the best writers of that era that has ever, lived. And so there are 21 books, and so in the books, Aubrey was actually chasing an American whaler ship because it was the Battle of 1812 that this was going on. But in the movie, they changed it to a French whaler because they said it during the Napoleonic Wars instead. So they changed quite a bit in the movie, and there was a lot that was shifted, and storylines were pulled from some of the other books and put into Master and Commander that weren't present in the actual book Master and Commander. But I don't know, I really adore that movie. I think it captured what it was to be on the sea so well in a cramped little space with all these men and having to survive, and that like that rousing speech he gives at the end, like this ship is England. It's like just this wonderful moment of like just coming together and fighting for something you believe in. So yeah, I don't know, I realize they changed so much from the books, but I don't know, I think Master and Commander has got to be one of the best films really that's ever been produced of the 20th century. That's how strongly I feel about it. So,
I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds brilliant. Man, that hardcore scene when the kid's got to get his arm chopped off. Man, that boy was made into a man that day. Let me
he was. And that's what I also love. I just love that that's just so unapologetically masculine. There's just masculinity is run rampant through that movie. But it is. It's like
men. Yeah.
It is. It's a movie about men, and it's as it should be. So, So I don't know. Master and Commander. I have that thing memorized. I can watch it on repeat. So yeah, definitely.
I mean, I didn't know it was a book, but it's definitely for me, it's like a go-to movie. Like I have no problem rewatching that movie over and over. You don't know what to watch? Okay. Master Commander, Sahara, things like that. And let's see, for you, RevKev, what is your top?
Actually, one of my favorite book to movie adaptations, someone had mentioned it in the chat as well, is Jurassic Park.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of controversy on that because apparently it's widely different from the book.
Oh, it's widely different. Absolutely. So Michael Crichton's book is, again, the book is better. Absolutely. The book is fantastic. If you've never read the book, it's fantastic. Like, it just gets into so much more. but the movie did an amazing job of capturing the magic of the book.
Yes.
Like taking the science of the book, right? Because in the book, you just had to use your imagination. Well, what would it be like if there were actually dinosaurs again?
Okay.
And then the movie actually was able to make dinosaurs, where you're actually going, holy crap, there are really dinosaurs now. Like, because again, this was CG, CG computer graphics. This was all new, right? We're still experimenting with this and playing with this and doing it. And so suddenly when you're in this movie theater, it's like, wow, this science fiction, you're now visualizing it. So I would hook, line, and sinker in Jurassic Park. Like I was like, even though it was very different, like, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you nailed the part that you needed to nail.
Yes.
Right.
And that is impressive. If you can get a book nerd to be like, I don't even care that they got the book wrong. This movie's great.
Well, exactly. And Michael Crichton is one of my big guys. Like I've read most of his books and all of his other movies, like they probably could have been on my top list of horrible adaptations as well too, because none of them have been good. Like none of them. But Jurassic Park, I mean, with Steven Spielberg, he just nailed it for me. So, yeah.
Okay. Wow. I have yet to read it. It's on my list.
Yeah.
It's on my list, my ever-growing list, apparently now, because Master and Commander's got, what did you say, 21 books?
There's a lot of great books out there to get caught up on.
A lot of great books. That's just not enough time. My second favorite, it was kind of like a toss-up here. Oh, I don't know. I'm just going to go with that. John Carter of Mars, A Princess of Mars. That is my all-time favorite science fiction classic piece of literature, is the John Carter series.
Cool.
I love it. And so it's an underrated Disney film. Most people don't even know about it. They don't even know it was a book. Most people don't even know the classics anymore, right? And Edgar Rice Burroughs, like, he is my favorite author. And so this movie, while a lot of it was widely different, there were actually some changes made that I think would have been better in the book. So Edgar Rice Burroughs, for those that don't know, most of his movies follow a very similar trend. He's also the author of Tarzan and many other books. I can't remember how many billions of books he wrote, but it's typically, uber masculine man rescues helpless, beautiful woman, right? Which is totally fine. But in the books, I mean, Deja Thoris doesn't have, there's just not much brain going on upstairs, right? Like, it's just, and so I like the fact that in the film, they made her a scientist. It's a little bit more believable. She had a little bit more of an attitude rather than, oh my goodness, it's John Carter. I can't help myself. No, okay. I mean, some women are like that, and it's totally fine. Some women need to be rescued. Some don't. I like the change in this movie because John Carter is so uber masculine. They did tone it down just a wee bit, his the uber macho-ness just a little bit in the movie. And so for me, it balanced it out, but I still love the books. And I think they did a really good job with the different Martians, with the alien-like creatures, because on Mars, if you guys don't know, there are black and yellow and red Martians, and then there are the green, fire. Can't remember what they're called now, but the Jaddocks and things like that, the chieftains, so you've got your typical Martians, your green people, but then you've also got different colors across the board Martians, and I think they did such a brilliant job making this book come to life in the film, and that's got to be, I love it. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't even know those were books.
Yeah. Oh, and like I said, I love it. And he's got, like, for the John Carter series, I think it's like 8 or 9 books, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've only read like 5 of them, and I need to finish. But it's just like, I want to go back and reread just the first one.
Right.
And it's also a movie that's ahead of its time.
It was a great movie. I loved it.
Or a book that's ahead of its time. So that was also fascinating. Yeah, this is a great movie. So, all right, your turn.
All right. So my second one would actually be Dune. I loved Dune, and I had tried to read the books on multiple occasions. I could not get past like chapter 2. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand the politics. What the heck is spice? In Star Wars, spice is a drug. Like, I don't get it. Like, I didn't understand the political structure of this world, and I just, up until like Frank Herbert, I think that's his name. Like he was still trying to capture what space travel looked like, whereas I feel like George Lucas did it so much better in Star Wars. He was able to break down what a spaceship would look like so much better, I felt like, than Dune ever did. So when I visually saw what the ships looked like in the movie, I was able to go back to the book and I was like, okay, I finally understand what's going on. And when I read the book this time, the first one, I was like, wow, they did leave out a lot. But what I felt like they did in the movie is they distilled the best parts and made it attainable to the general audience, whereas the book is just not attainable. The book is just, it's too weird. It's too dense of a, it's just, and Nerd Cookies and Critical Drinker, they all talk about that, is that like the books are not for everyone.
Yeah,
they loved the movie. Like they loved it. And so the movie, I thought, just did a fantastic job of just capturing the essence of this world and giving you the meat and potatoes and getting rid of like the rest of the other stuff that like really boggles you down and like really is confusing. So I loved Dune. I thought they did a fantastic job, and I've got my fingers crossed for Dune too, because I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I found the books to be a little peculiar, and then I watched the 80s versions or whatever of Dune, and I'm like,
oh, that one's bad.
Yeah, certain things were revealed, and I'm like, no, too young.
Sting in the metal underwear. It's like, no. It's like
some weird stuff going on. So yeah. So for you, your top there, RevKev?
So my other one that I had picked would actually probably get me in trouble with fans of this author, but I loved iRobot.
Oh, okay.
iRobot was Will Smith. So I know the diehard Isaac Asimov fans are just like, they're showing up at my door now with pitchforks and torches. But I never.
You guys don't hear from RevKev in a couple of days.
Exactly. The Isaac Asimov fans took me away in the middle of the night because I know they hated it, right? Because they just loved the book. I didn't get into the book. I tried to read it, and I just kind of like what you were just sharing. It was just too weird. I just couldn't get into it. Mm-hmm. Whereas the movie, I think, took the fundamental concepts of what he was creating, kind of the robot with the 3 laws and AI, and where could this really go, and mankind's dependence on technology, and the difference between dependence and interdependence, and all those kind of things. I thought, even though it was I love Will Smith movies too, so it just worked for me, and for me, and again, as a Christian, as a pastor, it just had one line in it. Like, it's all the time, like they were like, oh, the possibility, of a robot actually harming a human being is the same probability as a man walking on water. And Will Smith just looked at this scientist and goes, a long time ago, there was this one guy. And all it takes is one robot to break the law, right, of the robotic laws. So I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was a good adaptation of it. Movie. And a good way to be introduced to those books, as well. So, and I think that's, for me, again, that's a really good success in a movie adaptation. If it gets someone interested to check out the book, that's a big win.
Yes.
Right. And so for that, even though I didn't like the book, other people might. So yeah. For
sure. It's another book I have not read. I've heard about it, but I have not read it. So many. Well, we did our top worst and our best. To just quickly go through our honorable mentions. I'm just going to keep it on a positive note here. My honorable mentions for movies that were based off of books that did well, in my opinion, I can't pick an exact one, but I'm gonna go right for it. Moby Dick. Okay, any movie version of Moby Dick is better than the book. Now, I enjoyed the book. The problem with Herman Melville is that he likes to include a lot of needless chapters before he actually gets to the story. I like the story of Moby Dick. It's just that you have to cherry pick essentially which chapters you're going to read in order to get to the meat of the book. So any movie ever made for Moby Dick is better than the book. It gets honorable mention. And I'm also going to say Neverending Story. I think they did a really good job converting that book into a movie. And I'm also going to go with Winnie the Pooh. Although I am a diehard Winnie the Pooh fan over here, the original, I don't think Disney did a bad job converting that book into film. So those are my honorable mentions. You guys got any? Aleja, you have any honorable mentions?
My honorable mention, I think, is my mom hates it, and I understand why. I loved Black Beauty. I loved the Black Beauty that had Sean Bean in it. I don't know. It made Ginger's passing just a little more easy to bear, and him getting separated from his mother and all that. It's just like that. Black Beauty is just, it's got a near and dear special place in my heart. Also, the Black Stallion, I think it was really good. I loved that the kid talked so little, and that it was more that he was learning. He had to learn how to ride the horse, and when he was turned into a jockey and all that. So yeah, I don't know. Those are two that I can think of, and I don't know. I know that some people didn't like them, but I did like the Hunger Games movies, even though they did have to change some stuff. I really did like those movies because I loved the books. And I am cautiously optimistic for the Ballad of Burns Island Sakes. We'll see how it happens.
Cautiously optimistic. That's the phrase of the decade, isn't it?
Yes.
And your honorable mentions, Brother RevKev?
Yeah, I got so kind of in this the Maze Runner movies, I really like. I kind of read those books just kind of because I grabbed them at a flea market or something like that one summer and loved the books, and I loved the movies. I thought those were very different, but still very enjoyable for both of them. And I grew up, just a bit of context. So my dad was a big reader growing up, so we always had this ginormous library. My dad was really into science fiction, so tons of sci-fi from the 60s. There was a lot of weird sci-fi written in the 60s.
Of course, it was
a lot
the 60s.
of weird stuff in the 60s that was written, but that turned into some really good movies, like Blade Runner.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a book too. I saw, was it The Salty Nerd had commented and said that. I had no idea.
The book is weird and terrible, but the movie's amazing. Starship Troopers was another just mindless 80s action movie, which was great, which was based on another just weird 60s sci-fi book. So I really enjoyed those movies, even though the books are kind of, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, to each their own.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing I think it's amazing how many movies are actually based on books that we have no idea.
Yes.
Oh goodness, yeah.
I have no idea. And it's kind of sad too if you think about all the work that the authors put into their books, and people are like, oh, especially the classics, be like, who? What?
Yeah.
I was talking to this gal at church. We're doing Christmas play practice. We're doing Charlie Brown Christmas, and somebody was making a joke about, oh, sorry, Snoopy's sick tonight. His son, who plays Snoopy, he's like, Snoopy's sick tonight. He's out, or he's busy out fighting the Red Baron. And this gal over here, she's like 20 years old. She's like, the pizza?
Oh
like,
gosh. Oh, see.
Like, you don't know who the Red Baron is? And she's like, who? Like,
oh no.
So kind of did that, and I'm like, well, so the thing about the Peanuts gang, and she's like, what's the Peanuts gang? I'm like, we are literally doing the Peanuts gang.
Go educate yourself.
She's a wonderful gal, but I was just like, how do you not know? I was like, have you not heard that song at Christmas time? And we kind of sung the song, and she's like, I've heard it. She's like, Snoopy's in there? I mean, it literally said Snoopy went up in search of his phone. But that's all right. Well, so I'm going to treat this a little bit like I do with Girls Night. We are going to have a bonus question that I've already prepared my guests for. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it up here. The bonus question for the evening would be a book that would make for a great movie. That's the one I sent you guys, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So in your opinion, what book do you think would make for a great movie? Let's go backwards this time. Let's start with Brother RevKev.
Okay. That's a great question. I love that. It would have been really easy for me to just simply say Dragonlance, because that's like my favorite book series of all time. And I'm collecting those books again and doing book reviews of that on my channel. But I'm But I'm going to say another book that most people I've ever talked to don't know this book exists but it's written by one of the authors of Dragonlance, Tracy Hickman. So in 1997, Tracy Hickman released a book called The Immortals. Okay, and in this book, so the book takes place. So it's fascinating. Takes place in 2020. Okay, so written in 1997, takes place in 2020. Where the United States of America is ravaged by a deadly mutation of the AIDS virus. Okay, and this is crazy. And so basically, it's become like epidemic in the United States. And so the government sets up isolation intern camps to lock people away who have contracted this disease called VSIDS. And the story is about a father who who allows himself to go into one of the camps to try to find his son who was taken from him.
Wow.
Right? So it's got this father who's trying to find his son who is dying of this disease, and the conspiracies and what's actually going on. And the fact that this all takes place, oh no, my cat's on me now. All takes place in 2020. It's just kind of like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like you can't make this stuff up. Someone's got to make this movie. Yeah, someone's got to make this movie and say, well, this is like a commentary on the pandemic. It's like, this was written 13 years before the pandemic. Like, that
is crazy how that happened. I mean, so many things happened in 2020. And what was that one movie that came out that Back to the Future predicted all these different things would come in that year? I forget what it was, but the new Star Wars movie.
Star Wars movies.
It was the hoverboard, was it? Like what we consider the hoverboard, and just so many different things. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a little bit freaky when people predict the future.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So I would love to see someone do this book, The Immortals, really, really well. And again, to get that father-son dynamic, I'm a sucker for a good father movie. So that just fits. So I'd love to see that done.
And then for you, Aleja, what would you say? Book to movie?
Yeah. So I actually it's quite a substantial series. It's Tamara Pierce's Tortoise saga. And they're fantasy books from the 60s. There are some of my favorite books ever. I pretty much have them memorized. I absolutely love Tamara Pierce. Don't agree with her pretty much on anything at all, but she's a fantastic writer, and I love her stories. And it's so extensive. They could have 10 years worth of a TV show out of this. Again, if they were done right. It has and what I love about them is they have the girl knight trope. It has the girl heroine who comes in and saves the day, and she's the one wielding the sword. But it's never done in a way that diminishes men or replaces men or anything like that. They still retain their femininity. They still retain more, I guess, traditional or watered down, if you will, kind of feminist ideals, but they're just really good books, and I think that they have a lot of good storylines. So I don't know. I the last I heard, Tamara Pierce was in talks to do her books into a TV series, but she actually has stated many times she never wants her books adapted. She wants them to stay books because the world of Tortoise is so big. She just doesn't feel like anyone could ever really do it right. So I don't know if she caved or what. So I don't know. I don't know if they're ever going to be turned into movies. And if they're not, then you know what? That's fine. I'll live. But
right, we got it all up here. The imagination.
Exactly. So yeah, but if Game of Thrones ever really had an actual challenger, I think if they were done right, that.
Well, don't worry, Aleja. In a couple of years, this lady will pass on, and her posterity will. Sell out and sell her works and nitpick, and then we'll see how it fares.
They'll cash out. They'll go for the money grab.
That seems to be the trend. And mine would be The Perilous Guard. Has anybody ever heard of that book?
Oh, that one.
Gosh, Elizabeth, what's her name? I should have written down. Sorry, what?
Elizabeth Moon?
No, I forget
Oh,
exactly what her name is, but it's called The Perilous Garden. It's a nice, my favorite style of or genres are historical fiction, and fantasy, and this couples it together. It takes place during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, or right before the reign of Queen Elizabeth, and she's kind of in hiding from Mary and all these kinds of things going on, and that's not the primary focus. It's just the setting of the scene, and there's this one girl there that she's kind of homely looking. She's an intelligent woman, which of course back in that day nobody wants, and her sister is super ditzy and just everything that a man would want. And they're like, send this other girl away, she's getting on our nerves, go send her to live with one of these dukes or whatever like that, where she can maybe learn something. And while she's there, they learn about the lore of the fairies, but they're not the fairies like people think with the wings and stuff like that. This is actually a little bit darker and a little bit more realistic, right? So it lives off of the suspicions and what's it called, superstitions rather, of back in the day in England and Ireland and things like that. And so they have the hill folk and whatnot, and people carry around their iron to protect them from the fairies. And while she's living in this castle, just going about and doing her stuff, they hear the story of the daughter of the Duke who was taken in the well. A creature came up out of the well, and there's a lot of like rituals and things that go on, and they suspect that the fairy folk took her. And so this girl doesn't believe it, and she kind of starts pestering and poking around, and basically ends up being kidnapped by the fairy folk. And the fairy folk, though, they're as tall as she is. They're basically just mysterious humans, essentially, that live underground, and they live in the dark. And she basically gets captured, learns to become how the fairies are, but she doesn't want to be a slave and has to learn how to escape from the fairies, and ends up rescuing the Duke's daughter in the meantime as well. It's not a normal fantasy book. And that's what I like about it. It's very unexpected, the way that this story is done. And I've listened and read this book several times because it's just always such a good book to go back to.
Nice. I'm gonna have to put that on my TBR.
Yeah, I'll message you. If I can remember what the author's name is, the Perilous Guard. So yeah, a nice coupling of historical fiction versus fantasy. So I have a couple of things I'm going to say to the chat, and I couldn't go without having a secret bonus question just to throw you guys off really quickly here. We did a good book that would make for an excellent movie. I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds to think what movie would make for a good book.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just do my little spiel while I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that before we close out for this evening. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for stopping by here at the booth and catching us on this unique episode of Inside the Booth here while Dan is away taking care of Danly things. I've got my awesome people here discussing, of course, was the book better? Was the movie better? And we've had a wonderful time chit-chatting, very informational, and I love seeing the chat engaged. And some of you have definitely told us some of the movies that you would like to see into books and vice versa, and some that you think were horrible adaptations and were good ones. We are closing in on 800 subscribers here at Inside the Booth, and we just appreciate every single one of you. It's just so much fun to be a part of this community and getting to hang out. If you haven't hit the like button, go ahead and vanquish that for us. If you're new here and you like what you see and what's going on, please be sure to subscribe and ring the door. Ring the doorbell. Ring the bell. And we go live every Tuesday and every Sunday at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here at Inside the Booth. And we also have been doing a lot of trailer reaction videos that have become quite popular, especially Indian cinema. So if you want to watch Dan and I do some short reactions to some wild trailers, be sure to check out our videos and let us know what you think, and give us an idea of what kind of movies you would like us to review and some trailers you'd like us to react to, because we like to have a good time here and we can't do this without you. So we want to be able to give you content that you enjoy. And as always, you can find out the links for how you can support the channel, but not only that, supporting our friends here, Troubled Green and RevKev. You can find their channels in the description box down below. But let's get back to the folks. So I'm going to go ahead and go backwards again. Hopefully you've had some time to think. I know I caught you off guard, but that's half the fun. So if you could have a movie that you think would be a good book, Brother RevKev, what would you say it would be?
I'd love to see a book series based on Avatar.
Ooh, yes.
See, I love Avatar. Like, I loved Avatar. Loved it. And like, I'd actually love a book series, like maybe a trilogy of books, kind of explaining how is Earth.
Right, what's going on at home?
What's going on in Earth? You know, like Earth, like there was a little kind of snippet of like a little thing that you saw, I think in one of the director cuts or something like that, but that was about it. So I'd love to kind of get this sense of Earth, you know, the corporation of how they're mining other planets. And maybe a second trilogy that gets just deeper into all the Avatar stuff. I know
they do.
I don't know.
Have some books.
Okay, I've
Avatar,
never
the High
heard of
Ground.
any of those.
I neither have I. Somebody told me a little while ago, and I'm like, they make books because these would be great books, and they do actually.
Yeah, there you go. I'll have to check those out. But I get deeper into the world of Pandora and kind of how it's all connected as a big giant living network and things like that. But yeah, I'll have to check that out now because I never heard of those.
I know, right? I always thought that too. So, all right, Aleja, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. So, being such a book nerd and not very as versed as a lot of other people in movies, from what you've seen, what movie do you think would make a great book?
Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna catch heat for this because I understand there are comics. I'm not a comic girl. I've never really gotten it. I would love if I wish they had done this, that the entirety of the MCU had been turned into novels just as the Star Wars books are. So, you know, if you've ever read the novelizations of like the Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, the books are always more extensive. All the deleted scenes are always put back in. We get in the characters' heads a little bit more. We get all the different perspectives. I would love it if the entire I know for the first 3 Iron Man, they have been novelized, and I do have those books. I have yet to read them, but I'm going to. But from like Iron Man to Endgame, like full length novels, not like an abridged, 4-hour audiobook version. I'm talking about like a full novel, the entirety of the MCU.
We don't do abridged here. Come on, we're real.
Yeah, no abridged.
We don't do abridged.
I love those. I would love that. I wish that they had done that. So because like Winter Soldier is my favorite, my favorite movie. So I would have loved a 24-hour version of Endgame as a novel. So yeah,
that's a great idea.
That would be fantastic. I would love to read those. That would be so cool. Great choice. Great idea. All right, for my movie that I think would make for I would love to see as a book is an underrated film, and I might get heat for this. I think it's a fantastic film, but I would love to know more about is the movie Jupiter Ascending.
Yes.
Starring Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis. I thought this was such an original piece for a movie. You know, people were like, "Oh, it's weird." It's like it's sci-fi. Of course, it's weird.
Supposed to be.
I don't know why people didn't like this movie. Maybe it's because it was Channing Tatum. I don't know. He didn't play, the weird stripper kind of.
Yes.
Dude. I mean, he was a hunk. Of course he was. There's always a love story in there. But I think this would be such an interesting book because it's a world we're not familiar with. This was made from the Wachowski brothers, the ones that made The Matrix. So it's got a twist to it. And I think The Matrix should be a book series too, by the way. There's so much there that we don't understand and that it's different that I would love to know more about it. Kind of like Avatar. Because they basically just throw this idea in your face and it's like, here you go, like it or love it. And you're like, well, I really like it, but I don't know where we are. Like, what's happening?
I was actually shocked that wasn't a book because when I saw that, I was like, okay, surely to goodness, this has to come from a book. And I was shocked it wasn't one.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Yeah, I just assumed it was because it looked like one of those books.
Yeah, right.
Made to movies.
I felt like it worked like a book, but it would be better if it was a book. Salty Nerd Podcast says, "Careful, they'll don't misgender the Wachowskis." I didn't. I said that on purpose. Disrespect. I'm just stating facts. But anyway, he says the screenplay for Jupiter Ascending was 600 pages. Why not? What's wrong with 600 pages? Herman Melville didn't have an issue, but but this was an awesome discussion. We've gone a little bit over time. I apologize for that, but thank you so much for hanging out with us. And thanks again to my wonderful panel here this evening. I really enjoyed this. I love talking about books. I love talking about movies, and this was really fun and given me some things to add to my library. For sure. Going to be looking for some things here. But yeah, thank you, Aleja. Thank you, RevKev, for hanging out with us. And hopefully maybe have you back sometime. Talk some more pop culture nerd stuff. At least, you know, RevKev, because Aleja, she's new to this world, right?
Yeah.
She's getting there. She's marrying Johnny. He'll fix it. Like, I'm sure.
He will. Yes, he'll solve it. I've usually played at least one Zelda game, so I'm getting caught up.
There you go.
There you go. See, that's a step in the right direction. That's all we can ever ask. Thank you, Jacob Ironside. Let me get that up here so that Aleja can see that as well. The Perilous Guard by Elizabeth Marie Pope.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, I'm definitely going to.
And you'll take notice of the word guard. It's not spelled the way you think it is because it's an old word referring to a piece of the cat, like a structure, a piece of a structure that nobody ever
Nice. Yeah.
But anyway, thank you guys for being here, and we'll catch you next time. Catch me Tuesday, where I'm going to have Mark with a C, the capable gentleman, the maker, and rogue attraction as we discuss. Well, you'll just have to be here and find out.
That's about it, but no point. I'm sticking to it. Oh my god, he just spit on my face.